And get this kicked off. Hello, I am Krista McAllister, President of Cerius Executives, and really want to welcome you to our Cerius Leadership series. It's one of the many opportunities where we can learn, we can connect, and we can share here at Cerius. During this, Christine will post a LinkedIn post into the chat. We like to leverage the power of LinkedIn to continue the conversation and connect further. So the post will give you an opportunity to ask any questions directly of our guest, Greg, make any comments, maybe share your thoughts on top of the topic and the discussion today, as well as learn more in-depth information on Greg's background and connect with him further. We know there's a lot of ways that we can grow a business. One of the best ways to grow it is in a straight line. And we do that through leveraging the expertise and the experience of those who have been down that path before, which is why we created the Cerius Leadership series, so that we can share some of the expertise of the thought leaders that are in our network, maybe help that growth curve be as straight a line as possible. Today, we do have a lively discussion on measurable marketing with Greg Newman. From startups to global organizations, Greg has been creating a marketing framework that is scalable and predictable, which are two of my favorite words in the universe, Greg. So thank you and welcome.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
I know you've been an advocate and a driver of marketing from various roles. You haven't always been a VP of marketing. You've been in operations, you've been a CEO, you've headed up tech companies and marketing companies. Your marketing background really comes from an operational business perspective, and we'll touch on that today. I would say the accessibility of marketing tools is almost limitless at this point. So I think if you don't have some type of a framework or a methodology of how you're going about building your marketing platform or infrastructure inside of an organization, you almost end up chasing your tail and going in circles. So I'm excited to really kick it off with the foundation of what you use to build a framework and methodology as you're building out a scalable marketing portfolio.
Well, thanks. Yeah, I'm glad to be able to share with you today. You and I've talked about this stuff before, of course, and I get excited about this because I think it can have a real impact on company success and scalability. I started looking at this topic, oh my gosh, 25 plus years ago. I was running global marketing for a small division of JBC, and we were competing against much bigger rivals or rivals with bigger budgets. And we knew we had to be clever to be effective. And so, the old adage, I know I'm wasting half my ad budget, I just don't know which half, right? John Wanamaker. At the time, that was, still very much true. And I began I began promoting this idea within JVC and also with other clients, that marketing should be measurable. It should be accountable. And as I began to look at the topic, I realized that there were some fundamental pieces that needed to be in place in order for a marketing department to be successful within a company and for a company to be successful utilizing all the tools and the strategies of marketing. Because so often what I discovered, and in my business, I should point out, just like JBC, I had other technology companies. I'm a huge fan of technology. I got involved very early in my career. Technology is great at many things. But it is not necessarily a panacea. Technology for any purpose is simply a tool, and it's how we use that tool or those tools. And what I discovered was that marketing as a discipline was not being pursued within companies in a holistic fashion. And what I mean by that, it comes from some of the reading I had done. I'm sure a lot of us have done. IBM came up with this years ago, this idea of customer value modeling. Start with the customer and work backward, right? I think Steve Jobs said that very famously in some graduation speech I saw in a video years ago. So nothing new there, but it really wasn't being pursued and practiced diligently. Marketing was being seen, I suppose, as marcom, right? Just marketing communications. And that's not really what it is. Marketing is really a driver of company growth. If you look at it from the perspective of marketing being the hub, right? Marketing being the place in the company that has inputs and outputs, asks questions and provides answers through the gathering of data. That can be, first-party data, and of course it can be analyst reports and other, quantitative data. Data from your own operations is pretty useful, right? We took a look at JVC as an example. We saw that the CD recording drives, to give you an idea of how long ago this was, CD recording drives, there's a huge standards war going on. And once we discovered that, our strategy became clear. We knew we had to target very specific types of customers, what we'll call power users, and we had to hit them with a message that could overcome the fears that were immobilizing them. That kind of research led us to develop some new products as well, so that we could create a complete product set and really address their needs. That was not the approach of the company when I got there. And so this kind of data gathering and analysis done through a marketing lens and a marketing process really had a tremendous effect on where we were headed as a company. And we went from the number 5 player in the space. Within a span of 2 years, we became the number 1 brand in the world. And I was really proud of that because we used some really fundamental techniques in order to do it. It was nothing groundbreaking. It wasn't the best creative in the world. It was really about just understanding that if you zero in on the right folks and deliver the right message at the right time, you can be effective. And so this led to a very long journey for me about what is the proper role of marketing within an organization, and how do we do this? And I got very excited when technology tools a few years later came around, and I thought, terrific, we're going to do this. Technology is going to solve this problem. We have all kinds of measurement tools now. The rise of Google and search engine marketing. I saw this as a leapfrog technology. I thought for sure we're going to be able to really get out of this trap that marketing has been in for so long with a dearth of information. Now we're going to have an abundance of information. Not so much. Didn't really turn out that way. And here we are, 25 years later, and we're now still looking at why am I wasting half my ad budget? And so I feel like we need to take a step back as professionals and ask ourselves, are we really measuring the right things? Are we really doing this the right way in order to be effective at the end of the day? And so as technology has matured, my view has matured and changed. The recipe that I bring to companies now still involves very much doing the kinds of stuff we all do as professionals. Let's do a market forces assessment. Let's understand who our customers are, our competitors are, our substitutes. So often in technology, what I find interesting about helping companies with new technologies come to market is that it's a substitute that frequently is the biggest competitor. It's not a direct competitor. Frequently, there is no direct competitor. It's going to be a substitute. And so it's good to know the lay of the land and understand, who are we competing against, and in the mind of the customer, when they wake up in the morning, right? I like to joke. Nobody wakes up in the morning saying, gee, I think I need new technology. Gee, I think I need to buy more technology. That just doesn't happen. What happens is people wake up in the morning saying, I have a problem. Maybe technology can be part of the solution. And that's the lens through which I like us to evaluate. I had another client. This is a fun story. I'll tell it real quick. Years ago, they were in the IBM AS400 space. It became the I series. And no more boring computer was ever invented. It's bulletproof. It doesn't go down. And they created software that would replicate the data from one AS400 to another, so that if it did go down, you would be okay. But they don't go down. And so we had a real challenge on our hands. And what we did is we took the discussion entirely away from the technology, and we went hard into the idea of fear. You can't be down even for a second. Again, we identified our power users, casinos, banks, airlines. We partnered with IBM in the 1996 Olympics. God, this is so long ago, it's hilarious. And we made an impact socially and culturally by raising awareness amongst that target audience around C-suite issues, right? The issues about how this business, how these computers have an outsized impact on your business. Had nothing to do with the technology, had nothing to do with how it works. It had everything to do with understanding what people, our customers, wake up in the morning thinking about. What we ended up doing, again, with this data, is we broke the product up into different modules. We ended up pursuing something that really resonated with me, and it led to the second insight, one of my favorite insights in my career. The marketing funnel is a complete misnomer. I don't believe in it to the extent that it's used as the only model through which to view a customer relationship. In the B2B world, it's about land and expand, right? And what I see happening so often in my clients' businesses is they talk a lot about new customers, and there's very little time and attention given to the customer relationship and what we need to see there. And so I think about, instead of thinking about a funnel, I think about an infinite loop. And so I like to think that we can, in other words, as you hear me going through this stuff and talking about my framework, I like to think we can bring a very different point of view as marketers, not one that looks like we're sitting to the side of the rest of the organization, but we're sitting right in the middle, right within it. And we're very closely aligned with sales, obviously. We're very closely aligned with product and technology. And we're deeply enmeshed in the vision and the values of the company. And of course, that comes from the CEO and the C-suite. When we position ourselves properly that way, we can be of significantly greater help to the companies we serve. It does require us to do a little bit of re-education. There's some resistance, but I think that there's a huge benefit to doing that. And so before we even get to talking about how do we measure our interactions, how do we measure our campaigns, what are some of the KPIs we would use, I like to make sure that we have the right framework in place, and that companies are pursuing things from a marketing-driven perspective. And again, my background, to be very clear, a lot of technology companies, a lot of startups, a lot of scale-ups. I suspect, and guessing I'm right, a lot of folks on this call don't deal with technology companies, perhaps deal with consumer products companies. I think a mature company of any sort probably has learned a lot of these lessons, I hope. But I've also worked for startups who are in the B2C space, consumer packaged goods companies, and they must learn the same lessons. So I don't think this is simply a technology company issue. I think it's more of a startup and a scale-up issue, where you're dealing with a founder who has likely created a product through their own experience, right? An innovative founder, and they need help. And I like to think that I can be helpful to companies by coming in and adding to their experience, respecting what they've learned and done, and helping to grow it by building upon it.
And I would say, Greg, in looking at you talked about the hub, marketing being the hub versus being an auxiliary department that's kind of off on the edges, and you only go there for certain things. We're seeing that more and more as marketing is just the lifeblood of so many different areas of the company. And when you've got that as the hub and a central point of communication, you can leverage it in human resources, you can leverage it in IT, you can leverage internal communications, external. You've got a direct line to the customer, and you're able to keep those internal customers, the employees, and the external customers, our clients, really firsthand information. There's also so many tools and so much information out there where you can collect data from them, because when you are the hub and you have access to all that information, especially when it's firsthand, you're not hearing it through others. Let's get into some of that. In order to have numbers, you've got to have data.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How do you go about building it in your framework? How do you go about collecting that, ensuring it's the right data? 6 months down the road, we found out we asked the wrong question.
Yeah.
No, are we asking the right questions, or are we collecting the right data?
Yeah, exactly. By the way, you said something really important, and I want to pick up on it. Marketing is not sitting in a central role for the sake of marketing. Marketing owns the customer. That's the key, right? That the customer is front and center, not marketing. And I'm so glad you said that. And that's exactly why we should be as marketers, we should be in the middle, because I think we understand how to ask the right questions, how to go find the information you're talking about, and present it within a context that's useful to all of the facets, all the different departments in the company. Because a lot of decisions need to be made. It's not as though we learn about a customer and their needs, and one action is taken. Typically, it spawns multiple actions. There are decisions about products, there's decisions about sales, and there's decisions about what events do we go to, for instance. I had an experience a few years ago with a company here in Irvine, a software company, shall remain nameless. And they're very sales driven, very aggressive, and sales very much owned the customer. Marketing was a real tussle. And the result was that we went to a lot of live events because the salespeople felt really good about going to live events. And you know what? Live events are great. I have no problem with that. But we tracked and measured the money spent and the outcomes produced by these live events. And we discovered that our average marketing qualified lead, and by the way, we track, and I'm sure everybody here, I hope everybody here does this. Marketing shouldn't stop at marketing qualified lead, right? We track sales qualified leads, sales accepted leads. We track deals. We track closed won. We track lost. We need to understand as marketers all of that, because marketing gets tasked with driving MQLs frequently, but what's not often spoken is that if those things don't turn into deals and we don't see closed won deals, marketing is still going to get painted with that, and fairly or unfairly, right? And we need to understand that, and we need to range across into the sales process, and in fact, even own in my opinion, and this is how I tend to build my departments and organizations, marketing owns the inside sales reps and owns the scripts and owns everything, because that way we can be sure that we're generating a smooth handoff. In the case of this company a few years ago, we found that we were paying something like $11,000 for every opportunity by going to these deals, these live events, whereas doing webinars, one of my favorite, long-term favorite tactics, $128 per. You tell me, right? Which one would you prefer? Pretty easy decision. And yet culturally, it was so hard for this company to change and let go that they continue to pursue this incredibly inefficient strategy. But I had the data. I felt the data told the whole story, but it doesn't, does it? Right? It's about culture too. I get that, and maybe I didn't make enough room to allow other folks there to have their say. And so, as an executive, it's important to remember that and respect. Marketing is not always in a power position. We need to come with the data. And so you asked the question. I'm sorry, it's a long answer. I get the data.
Okay, yeah, I want to get into that. So before we move on to actually measuring it, the data you're gathering to figure out, because that's going to, as you mentioned, that's going to determine what we do next. That's going to decide where are the opportunities. Our customer is going to tell us this is where we should be interacting with them. What are you looking for from that data?
So I sort of, is the word bifurcate the right word? I take things in two levels. So I love analyst reports. I appreciate the fact that they're sentinels, right? They're out there looking for what's next, what's happening in the industry, and they're setting trends, they're setting the tone. They're establishing things like the terminology, the nomenclature. Where are we going? I'm big into manufacturing, Industry 4.0. This is great. Give us a framework that we can all as an industry work toward. But that can only take us so far. And so there's a lot of sort of noise in the middle, and then I get down to customer level, right? I really want to talk to the customers. I can think of no more valuable data than first-party customer data. And I can't stress enough how I weave into normal operations the talks with customers in the form of surveys, which are usually easy to put together electronically, right, these days, but also simple phone conversations. Getting together at these industry events I mentioned is a great chance to meet with customers. Get a hotel room, get them off site, talk to them for a while. In fact, get a video camera. You're going to get some great testimonials. Double up on your investment. I'm sure that's an idea that's being used quite frequently. And so I find that when you sandwich the analyst reports and industry expert reports together with customer data through focus groups and customer forums and individual interviews, you get a sense of a lay of the land, if you will, about where things are headed and where you perhaps need to be in order to compete effectively for those dollars. You can decide, for instance, classic marketing stuff, right? Are we a product performance company? Are we a customer intimacy company? Are we competing on price? Please no. And so this data can be hugely valuable. The last bit of that I would say really matters for companies that are already operating, aren't startups. Go look at your sales history and your sales data and your customer history. If you're operating online and you're doing anything with e-commerce, there's just an abundance of data, and you can see all of your customer acquisition costs and other metrics, and understand you get a pretty good picture of where you're efficient, where you're inefficient, who are your best customers, what are your best products, and back your winners. You got to be ruthless sometimes, and I don't think we are enough of that.
And I love that you said it goes back to the hub and spoke and the customer coming first in the journey is really weave all of this data gathering into our current operations. What events, what are we doing, and how can we get the information not separately, not flying a bunch of customers in and doing it separate, but through roundtables at the industry events. That we're already doing, and we just mingle the two together, and we're gathering it in such a natural way. No one really realizes what we're doing, and they're probably more at ease. You started to get into now how we're using that data, what metrics. You talked about KPIs earlier. And the reason we're here is the measurable marketing.
Yeah,
There are more measurements than possible. How do we sift through what should we be looking at, and how are we identifying success with that?
Yeah, for sure. You reminded me of something I want to say that it may be the experience of many people on this call, and that is we've all been wooed by the promise of CRM, Salesforce in particular, and I think we've all experienced too by this point that that's no panacea. In fact, Salesforce is so tough, you have to actually have a Salesforce expert on staff frequently, right? And so what I find fascinating and frustrating about that is that there's more data than ever, but it's locked up somehow, or it gets lost in there. And believe me, I've spent hours building reports and working with Salesforce experts to build reports. And by the way, the same goes for HubSpot and others, maybe to a lesser extent. So the reason I point that out is yes, we love these tools. We're glad to have them, but you really need to take that extra step to extract data from these tools and really do some human thinking, do some synthesis on your own outside of these tools. There's just no substitute for it. And yes, AI can be a help these days. This is not a discussion about AI. That's a whole topic unto itself. I'm thrilled that we have AI, and I think there's a role, an increasing role for AI. But at some point, you need to take a step back as a human and ask yourself, all right, what does this mean for us in the context of what we're trying to achieve? And you can't get that readily out of just looking at a dashboard. But what you can get are things like, where's our traffic coming from? What are our landing page conversions and conversion rate? What's our cost per lead? What's our rate of conversion from MQL to SQL? Again, SQL to customer. My favorite, what's our lifetime customer value? What customers are the most valuable? I love splitting customers into tranches, right? And looking at understanding, these customers really seem to be our most valuable. Why? Right? Are they the most emotionally committed? Are their needs different somehow than other customers? It's okay, but we can have different types of customers. Although I would say, again, being ruthless, that bottom bit, call it 10%, 20% of your customers, you may not want them next year. That's okay too. Understand, what the metrics are there, and maybe they're not worth it. And last but not least, and this is so tough, attribution. There are attribution models. We all know them. Do we want to attribute the first touch, last touch, some hybrid, some blend? Pick one. I don't know that there's a perfect one. I haven't found one yet in my experience. I think you need to figure out what you think is best for your organization. But I will say the tricky bit about marketing attribution is this notion of quantifying the influence. Marketing will probably never get out of this trap. That is that we know we have multiple interactions. We know that many of the things that we do as marketers are affecting the relationship, especially with pre-sale prospects and to a large extent post-sale with our interactions, but we can't always measure them. Okay, in a healthy organization, we're all going to acknowledge that and understand that. But in an organization that's perhaps scrutinizing marketing, really focusing on your attribution and lead scoring can be a big help there. So use a lead scoring methodology that assigns points to different interactions, make sure those points make sense. It's logarithmic, right? It's not linear. You don't say 1, 2, 3, 4 points. You say 1, 2, 20 points, 50 points, 100 points, because you have interactions that are significantly more valuable.
Love it. So as you're stepping back, you're analyzing the data. I appreciate that you brought in the lifetime value of the customer, because more and more that's where we're seeing that integration of marketing and sales through maybe an interim chief revenue officer role and bringing the marketing, the sales, the operations all together under one roof, because that creates that infinite feedback loop that you're talking about. That creates that information in that we're not just looking at the data that's coming in, we're looking at the data that's going out and how it feeds in throughout the organization and understanding it's different for each organization. A couple more things I want to, or maybe one more to hit on. If you were to advise, say, someone who is setting up or evaluating their current marketing to be scalable, to be predictable, and understand this is wide across any number of industries, right, what would be a couple of key pieces of advice from your framework to say, if you get this part of it right, you're set up for success?
Yeah, what a great question, right? I'll start with the obvious. Let's hope you have a team. Everything's about the team. You can fix so many problems if you've got the right people. People who are willing to be wrong, check your ego at the door, understand that, we're all in this together and we're here to try to gather data and make decisions based on data. I would say that if you can get one thing right, it's know your customer. Just absolutely know them. Frontwards, backwards, every which way. The rest will kind of take care of itself. I know that sounds trite. I don't mean it to. It doesn't matter if you pick one technology or another. It doesn't really matter on balance whether you choose certain tactics or others, if it's all being driven by your deep understanding of the customer.
I love it. And that takes an integrated approach, as you had mentioned, across the organization, from our first interaction to the middle of it to possibly our last interaction. And why did we lose that customer?
Yeah, right.
Ask the question at every step of the stage. Great. Thank you so much for joining us. Your wealth of knowledge is almost limitless. And from, I'm not going to say decades of experience, I'm going to say from deep experience, the various roles that you've played in companies. The LinkedIn post is in the chat. Please feel free to click on it, ask questions, connect with Greg, maybe add some of your additional comments to what advice you would give from a marketing perspective, or what some of your favorite measurements are. Thank you for being with us here today on Cerius Leadership.